6:30 Central African Time. A very good evening. You're watching SABC News Prime Time, coming to you live from Johannesburg. I'm Vabakshni Chetty-Miller. Here's a look at this evening's top stories. Wits Protests spill over onto Empire Road amid chaos plaguing three of South Africa's top tertiary institutions over tuition fees. Palestinian Liberation Movement Hamas asks the ANC to put pressure on the Israeli government. South African media practitioners ask for support. They've called on SADC to protect press freedom. In our top story, Higher Education Minister Blade Nzimande has called for calm amid protests over tuition fees in at least 3 universities. Nzimande has called an urgent meeting with all education stakeholders, including university management, higher education and student bodies. As his news conference was underway in Pretoria, renewed tension but also concessions for management. Protests at Wits started last week over a proposal to increase fees by 10.5%.
Wits students staging yet another sit-in. They forced their way into Senate House, overpowering security guards and breaking a glass door, claiming university management was delaying a feedback session following the weekend agreement. The council refused to address the students. They were told to vacate the building by 3 p.m. In a mass email to students, the council made several concessions.
In that agreement, they say that they will negotiate fees from scratch again. The Vice-Chancellor has offered to give up his bonus. The third element is that they will negotiate with banks, the public sector, government, etc., to obtain more funds. Fourthly, and all the kids, students on NSFAS and who are deserving students won't pay the upfront fee payment. And we'll work out a payment plan for them.
But students were not appeased.
We will put whatever pressure we need to put on everybody. Be it the city, be it the government, be it the province, we will put pressure. If council is not hearing us, Habib must receive a call from Comrade Parkstow saying, Habib, can you control your house?
Later this afternoon, students gathered on a busy public road adjacent to the university. An impatient motorist bore the brunt of the protests. As drama unfolded on campuses, a call for calm from the Higher Education Minister and a reality check. Students who can afford to pay must pay.
Those who have got money, they must pay. That is the policy of government. We have never said that it's free education for everybody.
Nzimande denied keeping a low profile when campuses were burning.
The issue of fees is not a matter for the department. It's a matter for the various institutions. That has been the case all along. So it's unfair to then say when there's misunderstanding or student protests that I'm the first port of call. I'm not the first port of call.
This is a reflection of a lack of transformation. The fact that throughout the country, it's black students in the main who feel the results and the consequence of such unreasonable decision.
With year-end exams just weeks away, tensions around tuition fees are all but resolved. Gillian Pillay, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Fee protests are taking place at a number of other tertiary institutions. Let's take a look at what's been happening at Rhodes University in Grahamstown and at UCT in the Western Cape.
Comrades, you are not going anywhere today. You tell us that you want food, we'll provide. You want water, we'll provide. You want airtime for Max Price, we'll provide. We all have those resources today.
Acting Vice-Chancellor Francis Peterson and 3 management officials were forced to sit in the scorching heat. Students wouldn't let them go until all their questions had been answered. Several student organizations oppose fee hikes. They say this will exclude underprivileged students from the university. 2 students were injured during the protest.
Basically, there was an altercation because in all points there were blockades. So there was a particular student, a white male student, who wanted to pass by force. So he passed and he ran over students. So that's what he did. So basically, it was just a confirmation of the attitude of the privileged white students in the university who see nothing wrong with what is happening here because it doesn't affect them.
Students also prevented the acting Vice-Chancellor from being interviewed.
They have nothing else to say to students, to the media, unless they have to speak to students.
Students say the shutdown will stay in place until management presents concrete resolutions. Nomao Tusolwandle, SABC News, Cape Town.
Students were out before dawn blockading roads with burning debris. They want the university to scrap the 50% minimal initial payment before registration to secure a place for next year. This amounts to anything between 40 and 50,000 rand per student. The university put an offer on the table where they pay only 20% upfront and spread the balance of the annual fees over 10 months. But students want no minimum initial payment.
We don't want 20%, I'm sorry. We are not taking it, and it's not like it's 20% of the whole fees. It's 20% of only the MIP payment. Now tell me, if it's only 20%, how much are we going to pay?
The university says a fee hike is unavoidable as government funding is minimal.
The solutions that we really should be looking at, one, we should approach Treasury and ask them to provide more money to fund higher education. And secondly, we must approach the private sector. The private sector are the main beneficiaries of these graduates.
The university says it remains open to talks with the students to find a solution. Abongile Dumago, SABC News, Grahamstown.
The African National Congress says it remains committed to supporting the liberation struggle of Palestinians. Leaders of the Palestinian Liberation Movement Hamas met with the ANC's top 6 leaders, including President Jacob Zuma in Johannesburg. Hamas wants the ANC to put pressure on Israel by implementing sanctions. Hamas wants Israel to withdraw from occupied Palestinian territories, including Jerusalem.
Leaders of the Palestinian Liberation Movement Hamas meeting with an old ally. Hamas's representatives are in South Africa at the invitation of the ANC to drum up support for their anti-Israeli occupation struggle. Although the delegation met and interacted with ANC leaders, including President Jacob Zuma, ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe stressed that Hamas isn't being hosted in any official capacity by the South African government.
Hamas has been invited by the African National Congress. There must be no confusion about that. Not the state or government or anybody. Is a party-to-party relation.
Mantashe says a letter of intent has been drafted which confirms that the ruling ANC has agreed to formalize its relationship with Hamas. Hamas leader Khalid Mishal says his mission was to give the ANC's top leadership the latest updates on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
And also we have captured the moment of our meeting to update our dear friends with the last updates of the situation in Palestine, with the escalation of the Israeli occupation, killing the children, confiscating land, attacking the holy sites, the Al-Aqsa Mosque on top.
Hamas is but one of several Palestinian liberation movements opposing Israeli occupation in Gaza and Jerusalem. Hamas has called on the ANC to lobby international support for Israel's leaders to be taken and indicted for war crimes at the International Criminal Court. Hamas says it is ready to unite the various pro-Palestinian movements in Gaza and other occupied territories to speak in one voice. From here, members of Hamas's Politburo say they'll be taking their calls for solidarity and messages to members of civil society and religious leaders across the country. Dumala Mushaudi, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Let's take you back to our lead story and let's get the latest now. From Wits, we cross live to our reporter Nozintombi Mia. A very good evening to you, Nozintombi. Students have been protesting since Wednesday last week, calling for the proposed increases to be scrapped. Today we saw that protest action escalate into acts of violence. What's the mood at Wits like now?
A very good evening to you, Vabakshini. As you can see, it's been an all-day protest by the students, and they are resolute. They refuse to leave Senate House up until they've been addressed by the university management. They were sitting outside just a few minutes ago, and several of the students went back inside Senate House to start occupying the area. But they are determined to get feedback today. You'll remember that the executive was supposed to give the students feedback on the discussions that were had on Friday and over the weekend with the SRC leadership as well as with the executive of the university. And they were supposed to give students feedback at midday. And this did not happen because the university management felt that they were not safe. And they asked that the students clear out of Senate House at 3 o'clock before they could address their leaders. Yet still that did not happen. But the students are saying that they will stay here all night if that's what it takes for them to get clarity and feedback from university management.
Nuus told me that meeting didn't happen, but the university has made some concessions. They have decided to waive the deposit that students are required to pay when enrolling at Wits, and it's also committed to put in place austerity measures to ensure that funds are properly utilized. How are the students reacting to these developments?
You recall, Vabakshni, that the university had wanted a 10.5% increase on the university fees. And this is one of the resolutions that they've said they've scrapped. And they're going to go back to the drawing board with members of the SRC and other university leaders to go back to the drawing board and talk about what would be a more palatable increase, as well as the university saying that they're going to start with austerity measures. And when they talk about austerity measures, they're saying non-essential elements of what happens with their funding is going to be scrapped. So that money that was supposed to go towards fixing of the old buildings and maintenance will now go towards the funding of the students. It will also go towards NASFAS. It will also go towards what some of the students are getting in terms of scholarships. So that money will then be redistributed to the students in terms of their fees. But the students are saying that they were only given a piece of paper. They were not given feedback by the management, and they want management to speak to them and not to speak through the media and not to give them pieces of paper and not to duck and dive, but to specifically come to the students and address them at Senate House. Because you remember that this is the epicenter of where the students' protests have begun, right here at Wits, and the students are saying that they deserve that amount of respect from the university management to address them.
Now, examinations at Wits are less than 2 weeks away. How long are we likely to see the students protest? I know you say they're resolute, but they must be concerned about their exams.
The students are saying that they will make sure that they get this issue clarified before they go back to exams. They're not concerned about writing the exams up until the issue of funding has been resolved. The most pressing thing for them is that the funding issue is resolved so that they can be able to write their exams knowing that that particular issue has been taken care of. They've said that they're going to make sure they shut down the campus for the next 3 days, and university management has said that they're going to make sure that the university is shut down for the day tomorrow, just to make sure that everybody's safety is assured. But the students themselves are saying, regardless of whether the exams are going to be happening in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks or whenever the exams are going to be happening, they want to make sure this issue is resolved and that the university management come and speak to them and address their concerns and make sure that there is no 10.5% increase. All the issues in terms of any increases are completely scrapped.
Nuus Mia, our reporter, coming to us live, bringing us the latest from that Wits University protest. Students there protesting against that proposed 10.5% fee hike. We'll be back with more news after the break. Do stay with us on SABC News Prime Time.